The coronavirus pandemic has put food security in the spotlight over the last year, with scenes of panic buying frenzies becoming commonplace on television screens. But one woman has been thinking about food security since well before the pandemic. Ronni Kahn is the founder of OzHarvest, an essential service that picks up excess food that would otherwise go to waste and gives it to those who need it most. It's important work, but OzHarvest, like many relief charities, had a difficult year. It faced a dramatic drop in donations and lower volunteer numbers due to lockdowns, but Ronni powered on, and for the way she fostered resilience in a testing time, she has been nominated for the Australian newspaper's Australian of the Year. And Ronni joins me now. First of all, Ronni, lovely to see you. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon, and congratulations on this nod.
Thank you so much. Quite honestly, I'm taking this one for the team. The resilience that my team have showed allowed me to just lead exactly the way I needed to. We just put our community first. Our impact is what drives us, and that's why we managed with such resilience through this year. So I'm very blessed to have an extraordinary team around me.
I absolutely love OzHarvest and all the work you do. Can you tell us a bit about how it all began?
Yes, absolutely. So 17 years ago, I was working in the hospitality industry and kept seeing food go to waste. And it seemed outrageous. And so what I figured, if I could connect that good food with people in need, perhaps it would be a good idea. And I guess 160 million meals later, wasn't such a bad idea.
Not at all. It's incredible the work you do, as I said. Why is it so important, and why was it needed?
Well, first of all, good food goes to waste every single day. Every time we go shopping, every time industry produces food, the whole food supply chain is not working at its best. So we waste food as citizens, as consumers. Every shop we do, the research says we waste 1 in 5 shopping bags. We could save over $3,500 a year if we understood the value of food and made a shopping list before we went shopping. So, the challenge is that a third of all food goes to waste globally. And yet we have hunger, we have starvation, and it's all about the distribution and the logistics and understanding the value of food.
Obviously, this last 12 months has been like no other. We've all had to adapt in some type of way since this pandemic hit. How did you go about that process with OzHarvest? How did things change for you?
Well, for us in the first instance, suddenly the food fluctuations just made it untenable for us because we rely solely on surplus food and excess from within the food supply chain. And as you rightly mentioned, we were panic buying, which meant supermarket shelves were empty, which meant there wasn't that much food to give us because a lot of our food does come from the supermarket sector. And so for the first time ever, we had to purchase food. And so we had to lobby the federal government to get a grant because whilst they were handing out money to business, they didn't look at our sector at all. And so, of course, our sector needed support, just like all of those businesses. In fact, even more, because suddenly, through this pandemic, we now have 1 million more people. We call them this new cohort of hungry, who've never needed food relief before, and for the first time have found themselves in a position because they lost their jobs, they lost sources of income that we'd all relied on, and suddenly they needed food. And so we rolled out a whole bunch of new programs, and for that I'm incredibly proud of my team, because we created hamper pop-ups, and in fact our recipients have told us that although they receive these beautiful food boxes that are curated with healthy, beautiful, balanced, core-based food plus fresh produce, which now we are purchasing because we've never run out of so much food. They tell us they call them dignity boxes. because they have just made such a difference. And this is to those workers who didn't, to temporary workers who lost their jobs, to those students who suddenly found themselves without their casual jobs, and to those new people who lost their jobs and suddenly needed food.
Ronni, what is I know it's hard to say, well, I imagine it's hard to say, but what is the future looking like for yourself, OzHarvest and other charities in this climate, because it is such an uncertain time for all of us?
Yeah, look, what we know for sure is that food security is not going to end when this pandemic ends, and none of us know when this pandemic ends, but certainly when JobKeeper ends and the job support ends, which has already been diminished. So by March, that is a new cliff that all of our recipients will be facing. So for us, food security is only going to get worse, and it's going to be food insecurity. And so the end is not in March for us, and will take a very long time till all of those people we support can either get back into employment or find some kind of balance. And that is the same for every charity. Our charities tell us they could take 50% more food than we can give them because of the demand.
Wow, that's just incredible. Well, Ronni, we have to leave it there, but thank you so much for your time this afternoon. You do brilliant work. OzHarvest is just such an incredible charity and an incredible concept that was so very much needed. And we wish you well moving ahead in 2021.
Thank you so much, and thank you for highlighting this nomination. I really appreciate it. And thank you to everyone who supports OzHarvest.
Thank you very much, Ronni. We'll see you again soon.